Hilchas kiLAYIM, Perek Beis. So as a preparation for this Perek, I want to give a bit of a mashal. Let's pretend for a minute there was a concept of money that's kosher, money that's not kosher, and just like food, if a little bit of non-kosher money gets mixed in kosher money, it becomes batel. Now, how do you evaluate if there's a ratio to make it batel? You might say, well, how much does this pile of money weigh? How much does that pile of money weighs? What if this pile is pennies, but this pile is dollar coins? The pile of dollar coins might be a lot less, be a lot more money. So maybe if you have a large bucket of pennies that's not kosher, it gets intermingled with some dollar coins that are kosher, but the dollar coins are more, you'd say it's nullified, even though it's quantitatively in weight so much smaller. So this pair is going to give us a similar example. You're going to have a situation of permitted and unpermitted, or concept of bittul. Over here, it's really not permitted for some. It's two things that are both permitted. The mixture is a problem. So maybe basar v'chalav is a better example. But the point is the same. We're going to have a situation where it's not the observable quantity. You got to be aware of the nature of what's going on over here, right? Okay, let's do the perek inside. That was a metaphor for what we're talking about. Halacha aleph. Zera shenisara b'zera acher. Yesterday's perek we learned that kilayim is not allowed. Different species cannot be planted together. Now, if you have a bucket of seeds and other seeds get mixed in, right? You go to the store, you go to the farm, you got to buy a bucket of wheat kernels, and then you open the bucket, you come home, and there's barley kernels inside. If the quantity of the kernels or of the grain with the other was 1/24th, one of the other, so one of them is 24 times the other, you're going to saw shel chitin. You have one saw of wheat, that was mixed with 23 saw of barley. So according to the Rambam, it's ratio of 1 to 23, so the total is 24. That ratio is the baseline of what makes it usher. You may not now go and say, oh, it's just 1/23rd, I'm going to go plant the whole thing. No, once it gets mixed to that ratio, you can't plant it. If you do plant it, it's kilayim. It has to be 1/24. 1 second. It has to be less than 1/23rd. And you have to first either take out a little bit of barley or add some wheat. If you do plant it without changing the ratio to make it less than 1/23rd, like you 1/23, excuse me, or 1/24th of the total, like you chayiv malchus. Now everyone's probably thinking, since when is it okay to deliberately change the ratio of something and make it batel, right? You can't, if the milk falls in chicken soup and it's not batel b'shishim because it's a lot of milk, you can't go just pour a whole other bucket of chicken soup, make it batel. Over here, of course, the answer is because there's no prohibition of mixing barley and wheat in a bucket, as long as you don't plant it. So it wasn't really prohibited. So you're not being mevatel anything. You're just causing that later on the bittul will take effect when the planting happens. All right, base.
So there's an isser, even if it's the same min, to put those things together.
Our perek described the case where it's chitim and sa'odim. That was wheat and barley. Two different minim. Of course, it's.
But they're two different minim.
Wheat and barley, absolutely.
So come they get the same bracha, they get the same after bracha.
As far as kilayim goes, two different minim. Okay, that was yesterday. We talked yesterday, right? So, like lentils and beans, two different, but they're both hadama. I mean, okay, halacha beis. That was yesterday.
No, but
yeah. So obviously, we're talking about a case where it's a problem. We're talking about it's a shul. Otherwise, the conversation doesn't begin. The Ram doesn't have to start every halacha by reminding you in Eretz Yisrael, right? This is common sense. All right, base. The chol kilayim mazera. Any situation we have kilayim with the seeds. All these. When you have a situation where you have a problematic mixture, the smaller species can combine to create a problem. Unlike in kashrus, where, for example, if you have 60 ounces of chicken soup, it involves an ounce of milk, an ounce of lard, an ounce of olive oil that's truma. It's all batel because they all contribute to the. They don't combine to create 3 ounces of isser. It's 1 ounce of separate concepts. Well, here that's not the case. Case of example, 23 saw of wheat. Now a saw has 6 kav. So there's 2 kavim of barley get mixed in, which is 1/3 of a saw. Shnei kavim the dash and 2 kavim of lentils get mixed in. It's another third of a saw. Shnei kavim pleilim and 2 kavs of beans get mixed in. It's another third. So you have here a total of 1 saw in 23 saw, and it's non-wheat. Even though there are different species that comprise this saw, 1/3 different species, it's a total of 1. It comprises for 1 total saw. You may not now take this bucket of 23 saw of wheat and 1/3 of a saw of lentils, beans, and barley each, and then go plant the bucket. It's not allowed. Until again you either minimize the mixture of non-wheat species and subtract part of it, or add to the wheat. Because barley, lentils, and beans, each one of them is a problem with wheat. Now, let's say if it was a species that's not a problem with wheat, like we'll see, for example, if it was a non-edible species, let's say, like, if it was the seeds of a non-edible medicinal bitter herb, right? That wouldn't be an issue, right? Or, for example, even if it's a wheat species, like you have wheat, and you have, some would say it's okay to plant with wheat, wild wheat or rye. Some say that's it's okay with wheat. I forgot exactly what Rambam holds, but if you would say that would be not a problem. That would be different, because that would even if you would say it wasn't, even if you would point is that that's other species, because it wouldn't be a problem with wheat, it wouldn't contribute to the problematic ratio. So you have your 23 saw of wheat, 1 saw of barley, or 1 saw which is a third barley or a third lentils or a third beans. It's irrelevant. You have 1 saw of non-wheat, and whatever is problematic with wheat, it combines to make a problem. You have to make sure it's less than 1/24 of the total. Gimel. When does this problem apply? When you have different types of the 5 grains mixed together, or different types of legumes mixed together. We said kitnius is defined as seeds that are edible, like lentils and beans, as opposed to cottonseed. Or even as opposed to garlic seed. Or you have grain with kitnius, or kitnius with tefua. So you have a mixture of kitnius and tefua altogether. There's some sort of problematic ratio mixture of that. So now that's when you look at the ratio, and all you gotta do is count the volume, right? How many ounces, how many saw, how many volume measurements of wheat do I have? How many volume measurements of other thing do I have? And I have to know if it's less than 1/24, I'm good. If there's a ratio of 1/24 or more, then I have a problem. But that all applies in where the whole mixture is comprised of species of tefua and / or kitnius. If it's the zerinagina, the garden seeds, which you said yesterday, is things like garlic and onions that you eat, but you cannot eat the seeds. So you have seeds of garden seeds that were mixed with tefua or kitnius. Then it's measured by 1/24. What you would normally use to sow in a base saw is the area that's usually appropriate to plant a saw of wheat. That's why it's called a base saw. It's 50 square amas, which is 2,500 square amas, right? So like 3,500 square feet or so. So that's when you plant a saw of wheat. If you're a smart farmer, you don't put the whole bucket in one place. You got to spread it around the field. But you don't spread it around 50 miles by 50 miles. There's a certain appropriate ratio for the density. 50 amas square is the appropriate density for a bucket that's 1 saw of wheat. Now, in that same area, when you plant that same space, you would plant onions or garlic or other things. You may not plant a saw. You may plant more or less, depending on the species and the nature of the agricultural science over there, right? So how do you evaluate the ratio? You use 1/24 of that amount where you would plant in that space. I'm just going to give more specific numbers soon. In this Arab saw shall tefua kitnius, if 1/24 of that amount gets mixed with saw tefua kitnius, then you cannot plant it unless you make the ratio bigger by minimizing whatever the small amount that fell in, or the large amount that it fell into of the wheat. For example, you have some mustard seeds that got mixed into your tefua, right? You bought a box of wheat from the farmer. You come home to plant it. There's mustard seeds mixed in. But in a base saw, the area you plant a saw of wheat, 50 amas square. When you plant mustard seeds, you want to grow a mustard farm. You don't plant a saw. You plant a kav, and a kav is only 1/6 of a saw. But that kav is worth a saw. Like my example before, the one small coin, dollar coin, is worth 100 pennies. If 1/24 of a kav, which is a 1/6 of a 24th of a saw, so that's 1/44 of a saw, right? Because 1/24 of a kav is so that, right, 24th of a 6. That's so it's you have a kav, you have a saw of wheat. You have a small pile of mustard seeds, which is 144th. Like let's say a saw is 100. Let's pretend a saw is 144 ounces. Now you have 1 ounce of mustard seeds, but it's 1/24 of what you would plant in that area where you want to plant presumably normally this saw of wheat. So again, if you have in this amount of mustard seeds that fell into this saw of wheat, you have 1/24th, not of a saw, but of a kav, which is 1/6 of a saw. Chayav l'mayit, you have to minimize the mustard seeds, otherwise the ratio is a problem. Or of course you can add to the wheat. What if it was not mustard seed? What if it was kind of thing that for carrot you use more? You plant 2 saw of this type of seeds. I don't know, let's say the cucumber seeds, for example, in a base saw. You want to plant wheat here? You use 1 saw on this piece of land. You want to plant cucumbers? You use 2 saw of seeds. If a half of a kav gets mixed in every saw, then you have to minimize it. Half a kav is 1/12 of a saw. So here, if you're using volume ratio, you're going to say this is problematic. You can't plant this over here. You have 1/12 of the mixture with this wheat. It's problematic. So I'm going to add a few kernels of wheat. It's not nearly enough. It's double, basically almost double the amount that you're allowed to plant. The answer is no, because you use the baseline of what you normally plant in a base saw, and because in the base saw where you plant 1 saw of wheat, you normally plant 2 saw of cucumber seeds, for example, you use 1/24th of that measurement. So therefore, it comes out just derech agav. What would happen if you have theoretically? Let's make this practical, or not practical. Let's make it simple. What happens if you have an area where you have a saw of wheat, and you have another kind of seed of a type of vegetable that in that type of vegetable, when you want to plant a base saw, you use 25 saw. If you have 1 saw of wheat with 1 saw of this type of thing, so it's 50-50 volume-wise, not a problem. Because that 1 saw is the 1/24th of you usually plant. So that's my example. I give it forward. The pennies and the dollar that you have to. Okay, good, fine. I hope it's clear. Therefore, tvuah nisar of bazar pishton. You have wheat that got mixed with flax seeds. And the Rambam is going to tell us soon that you normally in a base saw you plant 3 saw flax seeds, which is right. So it's apparently very dense for some reason. If there were 3/4 of a kav in every saw, then you have to minimize the ratio. It's a problematic. But if it's not that much, you don't have to minimize. Even though you have a saw of wheat, 3/4 of a kav is a lot. There's 6. It's 1/18th. It's much more than 1/24th. It's almost 25% more. It's not a problem as long as it's somewhat less than 3/4 of a kav. The fisha base saw because in a base saw you usually plant 1 saw of wheat. How many saw of flaxseed would you usually plant? 3. That's how the same principle applies to other seeds. So this is the difference between whether it's regular, what the Rambam called in the end of the previous parak, tvuah versus kitnius. When you bring into the picture garden seeds or egina, then it creates a difference. You don't just use a volume; you have to understand and know how much you usually plant in this area. Good. So all this is assuming that the person, I didn't do anything. I came home, I opened the box of wheat kernels, and the Gerisha farmer I bought it from had mustard seeds inside. What if I did it on purpose though? There's all these kulas. I didn't intend to mix the 2 kinds together, and I didn't intend to plant them together. If I deliberately caused the initial mixture to happen, or I didn't even mix them, but once I say, oh, good, mustard seeds and my wheat kernels, perfect, that's good for me, I like that, it adds good flavor to the wheat, so I'm going to plant it this way. Then if you have 1 wheat kernel in a whole silo of barley, and you intentionally, even though you didn't put it there, but you deliberately plant it in that way, and you're doing so, it's with your happiness, you're not allowed to plant it. The same applies to all these situations. Zayin. When someone plants his field of any kind of species, when he plants it, you go to look at the crop. Oh, now there's kiLAYIM. You suddenly see barley kernels in your wheat field. If you look at it and it's 1/24th of the field, and I'm not sure if this means 1/24th of the amount of kernels, 1/24th of the square footage. I'm not sure exactly how you would narrow that down if it gets so exacting. But so you have to pick the barley out until it's less than 1/24th. That's the eitzah. You have to pick out every last kernel, but you have to make it less than 1/24th. Now again, what do you do if it's in one corner? So it's very dense. It's 2 square feet of barley, but it's a total of 1/24th of the field or less. I'm not sure. I think future proc can talk about that. Pay Maris Ayin. The reason why this is a problem is because of Maris Ayin. May I tell you, there's no problem of you having kilayim in your field as long as less than 1/24th. The truth is, yesterday's parak we actually said that having kilayim in your field is also not malchus. That's interesting. So why?
Didn't say 1/24th in the last parak.
Right. Yeah. So the problem over here apparently is because of Maris. The only problem is Rabbanon.
I thought you go by and you see one barley in the middle of a wheat field.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So right. So in halachos where we described, he claims over here from the Taz that the halachos we described with the Jishma Torah, that was speaking of a situation where you wanted to stay there, right? If you wanted to stay there and you're happy it's there, that's Jishma Torah. If you don't want it there, but you just do backwards, you want to bend down and pick it out of the ground, you don't care if it's there. I thought you hope it wouldn't be there. You still have no kid. Then it's only Rabbanon. But the Chum said no. Even though you don't care that it's there, you're not happy about it, you're indifferent to it. So Mater is not a problem. The Chum said no, Marasayan. I don't know that you don't care. I think you're happy.
1/24th for anything.
Well, it has to be a ratio. If it's less than 1 to 23, basically, then it's not a problem. Once the ratio hits 1/23, that's when it becomes a problem. Because of Marasayan, Shem Yemer Kilayim Zobak Kavana, right? People will think that you planted it on purpose, or at least maybe they think you're keeping it there on purpose. Whether it was the 2 species was grain with legumes, is there any gina b'tfur v'kitnius? Was there any gina, or was the garden seeds we said with tfur and kitnius with each other? So in which case you would have to. Well, in which case, when we described in previous halachas about you use the different type of math to calculate the 1/24th, over here talking about the actual surface area of the ground after it's planted, you just use a regular square footage technique. If the growth was less than 1/24th of the total, and you don't have to because that's the basic baseline. Supply if I have to worry about Marasayan, you're going to look at my field, you're going to think I did it on purpose. When it's clear that I'm not happy about it, as I'm explaining soon, although it's very clear it happened by itself and I didn't want to do it, I don't have to go and remove it because no problem Marasayan. Again, if I'm happy it's there, then not I have to remove it.
Or it's more than 24.
Oh, right, that's what 1/24, right? But the verdict is, even when it's more than 1/24th of the total, we have to remove it because of Marasayan. You might think I did it on purpose, but if it's clear I didn't do it on purpose, I'm not happy about it. As we'll say now, for example, then I don't have to tackle. Why? You have a grain, and in the grain field you have this is called indigo. It's kind of like purple plant. Or for that matter, if you have, you have a case of wheat that grass grew in the field. So indigo grew in the field. Sviche istis is indigo. It's a kind of purple plant. So that grew in a wheat field. Where you have grass that you wanted the people should eat. It's kind of herbs. People should eat it, but it grew tilson, which is fenugreek. That's clear. I'm not happy about it. It makes the crop inferior. The applies in those situations. So because it's obvious, I'm not happy about it because it ruins the taste of the crop. You're not chaysh, you did it on purpose. Yud. How do I know? Now, in order to know this, it has to be that the tilson, which is the fenugreek, was planted for.
For anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said that. You plant the fenugreek, you want to feed it to people, not to your animals. And grass grew there. So even though it's kitnius, it's kilayim, but because the grass makes the fenugreek inferior quality.
That's wheat.
He says example. He says
grass.
No, miasavim is kind of grass. Yeah. I mean, again.
Fenugreek is a kind of a savim.
Good. Look what Ram says. Betil son fenugreek shazar lamachal adam, that you planted it to feed the people, as opposed to sell for animals. Shalu ba minasavim, which kinds of grasses sprouted there. Again, we're not chayish, even though it's much more than 1/24th. We're not chayish it on purpose. She's a mafsadu because it ruins the taste. Cows don't care. If it's a fenugreek field for cows, it's not a problem. If it's for people, it's a problem. Now, how do I know what my neighbor's kavanah was? Right? How do we know that the fenugreek was planted for people to eat as opposed to behemoths? When it was planted in organized rows and has like a border around to walk around, I guess the idea is that when you harvest, you can't step on the plant. You're going to sell to the farmers market, right? You got to walk between the rows. as opposed to if it's just one random, no pattern, then it's obviously that's for cows. If you have, let's say, a threshing floor, that different kinds of things grew there. So you have, you thresh different things on the threshing floor, wheat, barley, so things will get mixed together. Is not enough to uproot it. Why the field, this threshing floor has wheat and barley and every kind of crop, because I thresh everything there. Some of the kernels, they get sprout. Nobody wants things to grow on the threshing floor. It's supposed to be flat and smooth, right? Now, if you do take out some of the barley or wheat, whatever is growing there, and we tell them, then take everything. You can leave one behind. The fact he took some, left the other, is an idea that he wants it there. So you can only have one species. So once you start picking, you have to take everything. Everything except one. You're not allowed to plant vegetables on a stump of a wild fig tree and the things like that. So apparently there was a technique of a wild fig tree.
Stump of a wild fig tree.
Yeah, sycamore is a wild fig tree, and a sadness is a stump, I believe. So this is apparently it's a technique to graft vegetables with wheat. They would plant vegetables with trees. To graft, they would plant the vegetable in a semi-rotting stump of this kind of tree, and they would grow there, and they would merge into one big growth with the stump of the fig tree with the tomato plant or whatever it is. You're not allowed to do that because again, you're not allowed to graft. It's considered grafting. You can't graft trees with trees or with vegetables. All right, back to the refrigeration. So if you want to keep your bundle of radishes or turnips fresh, you put it in the ground where it's nice and cool, and you do it right under a tree. I feel it achas gefen even under a grapevine. A grapevine, we're more machmir when it comes to kiLAYIM, but still, I feel it achas gefen. And if some of the leaves are sticking out, that's not a problem because obviously I'm doing it just for the purpose of keeping it fresh. How does the fact that the leaves sticking out right? So the fact I'm leaving the leaves sticking out is that I don't want it to be mashish in the ground to take root. I'm just storing it. That's if, like we said, it's not good over here, right? As we said, so it's tied together. If it's not tied together, so that's if it's tied together and someone's sticking out. If it's not tied together, or the so if it was not tied together. Even though the leaves weren't sticking out, or the leaves were not sticking out, even though it was tied together. In that case, it's a problem of kiLAYIM because it's like planting it. Because if that's chlor, you don't want it to take root.
The leaves don't take root.
No, in other words, if you plant like this type of let's say carrots. Let's say no, carrots aren't seeds, but let's say you can't plant tomatoes, right? So, or here's an example, turnips and radishes. So the leafy part of the vegetable, if you leave it sticking out of the ground, that's you don't want it to take root and create a whole new plant. Because you want to make a whole new plant, you put it deep in the ground, and the leaves that grow out of it grow in the ground and they sprout. So the fact that you leave the leafy part out of the ground is that you just want to preserve the turnip and make it refrigerated in the ground. So, no, but in other words, you have a turnip here and you have the leaves coming out on top.
You leave the turnip in the ground.
Yeah, but the turnip you put in the ground and next to the tree or under a grapevine, just enough so the fruit itself is covered so it's not going to rot in the heat. And then the rest is sticking out, that's not a problem. Okay, I got to finish up over here. Okay, now here's what if I have a wheat field, I want to change, I want to plant barley now. How do I do that? You have a field that was planted with one type of species, and you cut the crop, and then some of the roots remain in the ground. Even though it's not going to grow very deep or whatever the way it is, it's not going to end up growing a new crop until many years later. You can't plant a different species in that same field. You have to uproot the roots. For example, the field is planted with wheat. Now you want to plant barley there before the wheat will grow again. So you sowed a crop of wheat. Now you change your mind. You say I want to sow barley there. Now just yesterday you planted a whole crop of wheat there. What do? You have to wait till the wheat kernels rot. And they become rotted in the ground. It takes 3 days. So you have the wheat kernels. If you turn them over right away, they're just moving them around, not gonna do anything. If you wait too long, it's gonna plant. It's gonna sprout. You have to wait till it rots, which are ready to sprout, and then you have to go chop them. So you have to wait till it rots for 3 days. And assuming the field was properly irrigated. Again, if it was more dry or less dry, it could be the time changes. But 3 days is the average. If it was watered properly. Then you turn everything over with a plow. Then you plant a new species. And then you could assume that basically you're not going to have 1/24 of wheat in the field. You don't have to do the whole entire field like I'm sure gonna until every single last kernel of wheat has been overturned. You plow as you normally would when you're expecting to rain to water the field. Regular plowing session. You dalit. If the wheat already sprouted, too late. Now you want to plant barley, right? The barley price doubles. You want to plant barley. You have to turn everything over, plow, and then afterwards you can plant. If you let the animal go into the field and eat everything, you can plant another species. You can assume the animal dug after all the different types of kernels and ate everything up. So this halach you don't have to wait 3 days because in the previous halach we said 3 days. But over here, I'm sorry, in the previous section of the halach yidal, halach gimel, we said we wait 3 days. Over here, you don't have to because we're not chayish the seeds are going to produce another plant for whatever reason. It's in a way that we're not chayish that because of the context, maybe the field's very dry, whatever it is, not chayish it's going to produce anything. But you're still not allowed to plant them together. That's why you have to plow or have the animal eat everything up. Tezvav. Aleph Adar Bezin would announce, be careful, make sure there's no climb in your field. That's when the harvest season starts. It's beginning to start. Everyone goes out to the garden and field. And cleans it from kiLAYIM. Chamisha also by in Tezvav Adar Shisham Purim. Yates and the Shulchan Bezin, Misabim, and Bezin. The Shulchan goes out and they do an inspection on everyone's lands. Design. We're showing in the beginning how your acre and Bezin, they found kiLAYIM, they pull it out of the ground and just leave it there, throw it away. The same, because the Balabatim, the people on the fields, the house were happy. Bezin was doing a job for them of the kiLAYIM. Any field they find kiLAYIM is going to be declared hefker. Provided they found 1/24 or more. Otherwise, if it's small, that's not a problem. If it's less than 1/24, they can't touch it. If the bezin had to declare it hefker, if anybody was allowed to go and say, I found kiLAYIM in your field, I'm taking your field from you. So according to the Torah, apparently, it was a bit of a free for all. It seems okay. I guess you have to be a raya, obviously, but to aid them or something, you'd sign. The chayzin, you'd sign. The chayzin shulchan bezin, the chodesh hamayim, the pesach, the bezin shulchan bezin will go out again on pesach. To see the crop that's ripening, the late ripening. That's what awful means. The kiLAYIM shenei nitzu, the kiLAYIM that sprouted, they don't give the guy any leeway, no breaks. They immediately make an announcement. They go out and declare the field hefker. If it has 1/24 or more of kiLAYIM.